Hello, and welcome back to Literally Who Cares? I'm your host, Alexis Bijor, and this is a podcast where you come to learn how to live as the best version of yourself. Here, you'll discover all the tips and resources you need to start living the life of your dreams. Okay, also, let me get a little bit more comfortable. In the last episode, I gave you all a brief introduction for what's in store for season 2. We explored main topics and ways you can share and engage with the podcast and with me, and some exciting things you can look forward to in the episodes ahead. I feel like it looks weird that my ear's kind of out like this, but I can't actually hear myself in this thing. I'm just going to take them off. I do this every single time. Today's episode, we are going to be talking about vulnerability, its importance in personal growth and building meaningful relationships. But yeah, we're talking about vulnerability. I want to give a quick trigger warning before we jump into this episode. I will be talking about sexual abuse. So if that is something that you've gone through or something that you're currently going through, you may want to skip this episode as it could be triggering. But yeah, let's just jump right into vulnerability for our first topic of the season. This is going to be a pretty deep episode. I'm going to share a lot for myself, but we're still going to try and have fun on the way. I'm terrified to do this episode, but we're going to do it. The first important thing is to understand vulnerability. Oh my gosh. I had chips and salsa today at work, so there's a lot of sounds coming out of my body at the moment. Anyway, I think it's important to understand vulnerability before we start talking about it, just to understand it better. And yeah, so here we go. I'm reading my handy dandy notes, which also I have a case on my iPad now, so this thing is not breaking. Okay, to get started, I think it's important that we start with the definition of vulnerability in the context of personal development and relationships. Obviously, different definitions of vulnerability, but in this context, it's going to be... Okay, so this was the definition that I found. Vulnerability within our context is the willingness to show emotion or allow others' weaknesses to be seen or known. Willingness to risk being emotionally hurt. The foundation for open communication consists of trust. Walter, would you like to come sit with Mr. Bunny? Aw, there we go. Oh no, you're slaughtering Mr. Bunny. I think it's really important to start with vulnerability when you are trying to make a change in your life or, like we talked about in the first episode, make a shift into a life that you find more attractive. Because I always say, like, your dream life. You might be living your dream life right now, but maybe there are some things that you feel like need to change, or maybe that you need to grow through, or you need to process, or you need to heal. I think vulnerability is the first step, and I think it's often overlooked, and we'll get into that. I think another important part of understanding vulnerability is understanding the misconceptions. There are a few common ones that I want to talk about, but there's a lot of fear also associated with being vulnerable. So when people hear the word vulnerable, many people hear the word vulnerability or being vulnerable and think that it means weakness or being weak. Some people think that being vulnerable makes them a target. Some people may also think that it's easier to go through life alone rather than be vulnerable and ask for help. I don't think any of those things are true. I think in certain circumstances, you might feel that way, or certain people might make you feel that way. But being vulnerable is actually something that I think makes you very strong. Hi. Are you sniffing around? Yeah. But after hearing some of those misconceptions, I think it's important to know the benefits of embracing vulnerability and why it is very important. Okay. There are many benefits of embracing vulnerability, such as increased emotional intelligence and stronger connections with others, which is like the whole point of what we're talking about here. Changing your life, finding community, and just being authentically yourself. Vulnerability can also help others relate to you and understand your feelings. It can help build empathy and open communication. It can be a source of strength when approached with courage and authenticity. And that, hey now, we're getting crazy. For the longest time, I did not embrace vulnerability, and I felt like it was something that made me weak. I didn't want to show emotion because I didn't want people to know that there was a side of me that could be soft and that could basically be broken down. I felt like I was being hurt so much that people could know where to aim, or people could know what to say to get me to become emotional. Now that I am an adult, I understand that, those certain things trigger you for a reason. Those certain emotions are there for a reason. They're not just there because they want to be and it's fun. Your body is having a very human reaction to being vulnerable and sharing things that maybe you've never shared before, or maybe things that trigger you, and just having that open communication. Now, this is the scariest part, but in order to be authentic to myself and to this podcast, I want to share a moment of vulnerability of my own and be very vulnerable with you guys. And this is absolutely terrifying because I've only talked about this with a handful of people. I'm not going to get too much into the details just because this incident didn't just involve me, it involved a lot of other people. And I don't feel like it's my right to share their story. So I'm just going to kind of be as vague as possible. And I'm sure people can connect the dots. But I also want to say before I go into this, please don't ask me about this incident. I am sharing only what I'm comfortable with. So please don't ask me more about this because it's not something that I'm comfortable going into detail about. I am healed from it. I'm good. I want everybody to know that. But yes, please don't ask for any deeper details because, again, it's not fully my story. It's just something that I experienced, and I don't want to hurt anybody in the process of telling this story. So, here we go. In order to better explain vulnerability, I want to share a personal story. When working on becoming more vulnerable, I find that sharing a story of vulnerability helps others around me feel more comfortable to let their walls down, to show it is a safe space to also share. Since this is my safe space, I wanted to share a personal story of my own. This story is actually going to be from my therapy journey. I've been in therapy for about 2 years now, kind of on and off. I've had 2 separate therapists, and the one that I'm with currently right now has been amazing, life-changing. Just has opened a lot of doors and helped me think through and process a lot of emotions, and just really, really helped me on my healing journey, communication journey, just all around amazing. But therapy or counseling, whatever you attend, it can be really scary and definitely really triggering. So it's important to know that you're within a safe space and that you trust your therapist or whoever you're talking to. That can be extremely helpful on your journey, and it has been in mine. So I wrote some notes down just so that I can remember and not get too choked up or go on a whole rant. This moment of vulnerability happened to me when I finally opened up about something that I promised myself I would never tell anyone. It was an event that happened in my childhood. The moment it came out of my mouth, I was completely terrified that I was going to be shut down and judged, but the results were completely different. So yeah, there was a moment in my childhood that I said I was going to take to my grave. I was just going to pretend that it never happened, that I was never involved, and I didn't realize at the moment, but it really shaped a lot of who I am and who I became as a result. I didn't realize that certain things were triggering me because of this event. I didn't realize that it was affecting my relationships with my family, my friends, with significant others. And it was just basically something that I not necessarily was lying about, but was definitely pushing under the rug, deep, deep, deep down under the rug. and just thought like, well, if I just don't talk about it, it doesn't happen, or it didn't happen. And just the moment, like I said, the moment it came out of my mouth, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so ashamed of this. I'm so ashamed of this event. I'm ashamed of the people that were involved. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of hate. There was a lot of shame. There was just a lot of fear around this. So the outcome was actually completely different than I could have ever imagined. Instead of being scolded, my therapist explained to me that this event was not my fault and suggested that I continue to open up about the event, and suggested that I tell someone close to me as well. And that was something, as soon as when she said that, I was like, oh, absolutely not. Like, this is not leaving this room. I'm never telling anybody ever. But she encouraged me to speak with somebody who has also had this same trauma and forgive them and forgive myself and just kind of see where it goes. You're psychotic. What are you doing? Anywho, so I took my therapist's advice and I shared this moment and my feelings and my thoughts around this event with somebody who I felt I was close enough to speak to about it. And again, the reaction was not at all what I expected. I was met with love. I was met with understanding. I was met with forgiveness. And there was just so much, like I said, the guilt and the shame was just completely lifted off of me to realize, like, I don't have to take this to my grave. I don't have to suffer through this pain alone. And it's okay for me to say this happened and I'm no longer going to let it define me. And it's really changed my life. It's really changed my relationships and just the way that I see things and understand things. And it has made me so much more brave to have those that was going to be such a powerful line. It's made me so much more brave to have those vulnerable moments, even though it's scary, just because I know this is something that I feel, this is something that I need to say, I'm just going to say it. And I've also had a lot of moments where I opened up to be vulnerable and it made somebody else feel so comfortable and safe to then open up and be vulnerable, and we can have that moment and we can share that moment and just create a connection that's real and authentic. And it's so completely different than like being guarded and having your walls up and being afraid, like what will people think, and having the shame and being guilty when we're all human and we've all gone through things and we all have trauma. And it's so beautiful to be able to connect with people in such a deep, vulnerable way. I just think that's what life is about. That's what being human is about, and just creating those moments of safety. I think that's really important, and I think it's beautiful. I know I didn't go into a lot of detail about my story, but if anybody has any stories that they want to share, I would love to hear them. I won't share any of them because I know vulnerability can be a very hard thing to share, but I promise once you get that first story out, that first moment of vulnerability can be absolutely terrifying, but once that first one is out, it's so much easier to share, and it gets easier every single time to just be like, this is what happened. I won't be defined by it. I'm a survivor, and it's beautiful. So if anybody does have anything to share, I'd love to read your stories and just connect with you. I think that would be amazing. Okay, so at the end of this, I wrote, although sharing this was the scariest moment of my life, I took my therapist's advice and shared it with people close to me, and it actually strengthened my relationships and gave me more confidence in myself. Like I said, I didn't have to carry that guilt around anymore. I didn't have to feel ashamed for my past, and it just brought about a different Alexis, and I think that's amazing. So now that I've shared my story and we've talked about understanding what vulnerability really is, I wanted to give everybody some tips on embracing vulnerability so we can take those first steps, or maybe take those third, fourth steps in sharing something that's really been on your heart lately or really been on your mind. So the first thing I would suggest is to start small. I didn't start small. I just went for the big shebang. I was like, you know what? I went into therapy and I said, I lied to you. I need to tell you the truth. And she was like, okay, let's do it. And that's how I started. But if you're not in therapy and you just have your friends and family, start small, because it can be a lot. There's a lot of emotion. I would suggest beginning with small acts of vulnerability to build your confidence. For example, sharing your feelings with a trusted friend, trying something new and outside your comfort zone. It can even be as small as giving someone an authentic compliment. If you see someone has a cool scarf, let them know. This was something that I actually started doing at work. I'm an extremely introverted person who's very shy in the beginning. I like to just observe. I like to watch people, see how they move, see what they think. But at work, I'm answering phones all day. I'm greeting people all day. And so I kind of had to build up this layer of confidence, and it started with that, of like just a moment of vulnerability. Hey, I like your shirt. Hey, your hair looks cute. Just those small moments of vulnerability, of really saying what you think and what you feel. First of all, it's going to make that person's day, and second of all, it's going to make you a lot more confident to speak what's on your mind as it comes in, and then you'll start to say things that you really feel and think in a good way, not just like, your shoes suck. Don't do that. It'll give you that confidence to trust in yourself and trust your thoughts and your beliefs and your values and your emotions. So start small. Start by complimenting someone. Tip number 2 is practice self-compassion. It is also important to be honest and kind with yourself. Certain situations may be uncomfortable, but don't be too hard on yourself. You may feel exposed and uncertain, but that is because you are taking a step out of your comfort zone and growing. Like I said, I remember the day when I knew I was going to tell this story or this event, tell my therapist about this event in my life. I was sweating bullets. My stomach was in knots all day because I was terrified. But I'm like, I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to tell somebody. I have to get it off my mind, off my chest, off my heart. Like, I just have to get it out. I have to. But I was so absolutely terrified. I sat in that chair and I was like, I can't do it. I can't say it. And then I was like, I feel this way because it is something that I have to do. I'm terrified because I don't know how she'll react. I'm terrified because I don't know what's next. But I just know that I have to get it out. And so it's going to feel scary. It's going to feel gross, and you're going to feel sick, and you're going to be sweaty and gross and nasty. But I promise, not nasty. You won't be nasty. I don't know why I said that. It's going to be scary. But the feeling afterwards, that's what it's for. And that's growth. That's what growth looks like. That's what it feels like. Step 3 or tip 3, I don't know, these aren't steps. Seek supportive environments. It is really important to surround yourself with a supportive community that you feel comfortable sharing your feelings with. If you don't have one of those groups, I suggest joining a group or community that fosters understanding and acceptance. For the longest time, I remember writing in my journal just about how alone I was and how I just needed this community. I had my friends, and I will always have my friends, and they know everything about me, and I share everything that I can. But sometimes, my friends are my same age. So sometimes I come to them and I'm like, oh, I'm really struggling with this. And they're like, me too, dude. It's like, you don't really get much advice. You don't really get much growth out of that, because your friends may not understand what you're going through, or your friends may not have advice to give you for the things that you're going through. So it is really important to have a community of a lot of different people from maybe different backgrounds who, oh, somebody's calling me. a lot of different backgrounds who are able to give you advice or who are able to give you comfort and support in a time of need that maybe your friends aren't able to give you, if that makes sense. For me, that community was a Bible study. I have a group that I do Bible study with, and I've never felt more just human and safe around these women. And just their knowledge and their understanding is just beautiful when I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going through this. And they're like, you're seen, you are heard, and we're right here with you. And I just think that's amazing. So if you don't have a community like that, I would really suggest finding one. With me, obviously, I went through church and through kind of the music sort of side of it. There's communities everywhere. Everybody is looking for a community because we are human and we are not meant to be alone. So yeah, find your community. The last tip is reframe vulnerability as courage. And I absolutely love this one. I really love this tip because I don't think it's weak to be vulnerable. There's a lot of people who have been vulnerable and are very successful. I don't have any examples. Let me think of some. Why can't I think of anybody right now? Ooh, actually, I don't know if any of my viewers or my listeners tuned in to Theo Vaughn, but I've been watching his podcast. The vulnerability that he has in his story, just in general, like he is not scared to say, like, I've struggled with things in the past and this is what I've struggled with, and this is how I grew up, and just being very real and very authentic. And that vulnerability has given him the platform that he has, and now he's able to bring on some amazing guests, and they're able to have a safe space to talk about their vulnerability as well. And I think that's absolutely amazing. And it's just, I keep saying this, but it's just so human. And I think we just need so much more of that human interaction. So that's somebody that I can think of, just recently that I've watched as an example of vulnerability. Like, he is not scared to say, like, yep, messed up and here I am, and I'm better for it, of just being real. So since this is only the second episode, I don't have a mindful moment for today, but I just want to take the time to remind everybody what a mindful moment is as we get close to wrapping up this episode. So, a mindful moment is a special segment where we take time to hear personal stories of growth and joy shared by our audience. It's a time to celebrate experiences that shape our lives and inspire us to be better. When a mindful moment is not shared or we don't have one available, I will share a relevant Bible verse that aligns with the theme of our discussion, providing a spiritual perspective that enriches our understanding and connection. I know some of my viewers may not be religious or may not relate to the story being shared, but I want you to all open your hearts and your minds and take what resonates. This segment is designed to foster a sense of community and encouragement, offering a safe space of reflection and inspiration. So like I said, we don't have a mindful moment today because this is only the second episode, but I found a verse, and this the verse is, love is patient and kind, and that's from 1 Corinthians 13:4. I think this verse, as soon as I looked it up, I was like, that's it. That's the verse. Because when it comes to vulnerability, the people around you that love and care for you are going to be patient, and they're going to be kind when you take those moments to open up and share with them. And that's the one thing that I've experienced so much through this past year, of just the patience and the love I have experienced from opening up and being vulnerable and sharing my thoughts and emotions. Like I said in the beginning, I was really scared to open up. I was really scared to let people see me cry. I would just push everybody away because I'm like, no, you're not allowed to see that side of me. Go through this by myself and figure it out by myself. And as soon as I started to let people in and find that community, the amount of peace and calm that I have felt in my life it's just unimaginable. By seeing other people be kind and patient with me, I am now able to be kind and patient with others, because we all deserve that. So that's why I think this verse is very relatable to what we're talking about today, because being vulnerable, opening up, I believe that if you're doing it in a safe space with somebody that loves you, they will be kind and they will be patient with you. So yeah, that's our mindful moment. 1 Corinthians 13:4, if you wanted that one again. So, yes, we are wrapping up. Today we talked about vulnerability. I have no idea how many times I said vulnerability in this entire episode, but it was probably a lot. I took time to be vulnerable with you guys, and I hope that means something. It was terrifying to me, but I feel good knowing that I was able to share it, and that hopefully it could help somebody else be able to share their story. Remember to take your time being vulnerable and start small. Like I said, it could be as easy as giving somebody a compliment. Just what you're thinking, what you're feeling, share that with people around you, because people do want to know what you think and how you feel. If you would like to be featured in a mindful moment, I would love to hear your guys' stories. There's going to be a link where you can send me a quick message on the website, or if you want to send me a DM on any of my socials, those will all be linked below. But please share. That's the whole point of this. We're creating a community. We're growing. We're healing. We're doing it together. So please share your stories. I would love to hear them. Wait, what are we talking about next week? Well, I want to thank you all for listening or watching if you're tuned in on YouTube. If you're not, you better go subscribe right now. You get to see me. You get to see my co-host, Walter Bean, and sometimes you get to see Mr. Bunny. Please go subscribe, go like, go comment, and share it with your friends, share it with somebody who needs to hear this. Next week, we're going to be talking about defining values, which was a huge thing for me last year, so I'm really excited to talk about it. So please make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to this, Spotify, Apple, Amazon. Make sure you're subscribed and keep an eye out for those next episodes. So I'll talk to you guys next week. Love ya. Bye.